Chapter 8. If the watch were found here in the room, Mike knew that he'd be labeled a thief. Mr. Friedrich would send him back to New York, where he'd surely go to prison. What could he do? His legs wobbling so they could barely hold him up, he squeezed his eyes shut, desperately searching for the answer. When he opened them again, he knew what he had to do. Mike grabbed the watch, dropped the mattress down on the floor, smushed the quilt into place, and threw open the door. He rushed out into the room and onto the stairs with such force he crashed into Gunter. Gunter grabbed for the handrail to stay himself, and Mike stumbled, sitting down hard on the steps. Mr. Friedrich's large hand gripped the neck of Mike's shirt and roughly jerked him to his feet. "Get up!" he thundered. "I didn't mean to be late for supper," Mike said. "It's not supper time we're concerned with." His fingers dug into Mike's shoulder so hard Mike cried out in pain. Mrs. Friedrich appeared at the foot of the stairs. "What is it? What's happened?" she called and began to puff her way up the stairs. "Michael tried to steal Papa's gold watch," Gunter announced. "No, I didn't," Mike cried. "Yes, you did. I saw you." Gunter turned so only Mike could see his face and smirked. Marta ran up the stairs, squeezing to see around Mrs. Friedrich's shoulder. Reuben was right behind her. Mike tried to squirm from Mr. Friedrich's grasp. You're hurting my shoulder," he cried. "You'll feel more pain than that before I'm through with you," Mr. Friedrich countered. "I told you, I didn't steal the watch." "Tell me where you hid it," Mr. Friedrich demanded. "I didn't." Gunter stepped forward. "I'll tell you, Papa. I saw him hide it under the mattress of his bed." "Oh my!" Mrs. Friedrich clapped her hands to her cheeks, her face pale with shock. Marta gasped, her eyes wide with horror, but the expression on Reuben's face didn't change. "It's not true," Mike shouted. "Isn't it? I'll show you," Gunter said. He led the way to Mike's room and lifted the edge of the mattress. For a moment, everyone just stared, until Gunter turned to Mike and furiously screeched, "Where is it? What did you do with it?" "I told you," Mike said. "I didn't take it. It's gotta be here." Gunter tore the covers from the bed and rummaged through the chest, but he came up empty-handed. Mrs. Friedrich let out a long sigh of relief and said, "The watch must be where it always is, when Hans isn't wearing it, on the dresser in our room. Each night, he carefully winds it and—" "Be quiet, Irma," Mr. Friedrich continued to scowl. "I'll look," Marta said, and slipped from the room before anyone else could speak. In just a moment, she returned, her right hand pressed to her chest as she tried to catch her breath, her words tumbling out in a rush. "The watch isn't where it should be." "Then where?" Mr. Friedrich hadn't finished his question before Reuben stepped forward. "What's that bulge in your shirt pocket, Gunter?" Surprised, Gunter clapped a hand over his pocket. Then he flushed dark, molten red. With all eyes on him, he reached into his pocket and pulled out his father's watch. "I didn't put it there," he exploded. "Michael did. He must have found it and—" Gunter quickly started over. He found it in Papa's room and put it in my pocket." "How could he do that?" Reuben asked. "Had you taken off your shirt and left where Mike could get to it?" "No," Gunter whined. "I don't understand this at all," Mrs. Friedrich complained. She leaned back and fanned herself with her right hand. Mike held his breath, hoping none of them would understand how he'd made the switch. "What were you doing with your Papa's watch, Gunter?" his mother continued. "Papa," Gunter wailed, "who are you going to believe me? Michael, who's a New York gutter snipe and a pickpocket? I would believe my son," Mr. Friedrich said, but he let go of Mike's shoulder. Gratefully, Mike rubbed the sore spot. "But Mike didn't have the watch. Gunter did," Marta said. "This is not to concern you. You will speak no more about it." Mr. Friedrich glared at Marta. Reuben stepped forward. "I think it's just a boyish prank," he said. "A boyish prank?" Mr. Friedrich began to bristle even more. "There is danger in allowing evil behavior to persist." "Wo aber ist, wächst das Wetten Tag," Reuben said. Mrs. Friedrich gasped, and just for an instant Mike saw terror in Mr. Friedrich's eyes. "What'd you just say?" Mike whispered to Reuben. Reuben must have seen the Friedrich's fear too. "It's just a line from a poem," he replied aloud. "It's translated as, 'But where danger is, grows also that which saves.' Mr. Friedrich is a church-going man. He understands that." "I think I do understand," Mr. Friedrich said, so slowly and quietly it made Mike's skin crawl. "You've never mentioned you speak German." Mike didn't understand what either of the two men were talking about. Reuben quickly put an arm around Mike's shoulders and another around Gunter's and hurried them toward the top of the stairs. "I just know poetry. Now in the squabble, no one wants to eat a supper that's cold." "Oh!" Marta cried. "The cream sauce will have scorched." She squeezed past Reuben and raced down the stairs. At the table, Mike was on his best behavior and tried not to notice the sharp, angry looks that both Mr. Friedrich and Gunter were giving him. But he had enough common sense, as Ma used to say, to know that Mr. Friedrich hadn't been satisfied with Reuben's answer. It was obvious that his suspicion of Reuben had grown even stronger. Mike also knew that Mr. Friedrich would hold this day against him. No matter that Mike had not been to blame, and Gunter would plot until he planned something else to get Mike into such trouble he'd be sent back to Tombs prison. For the first time since he arrived at the Friedrichs' farm, Mike had no appetite. Next morning, as the last cow entered the pasture, Reuben called as usual, "Make sure the gate's securely fastened." "I will," Mike answered. He dropped the bar, testing it to make sure it was fitted tightly into place. He turned and saw Gunter standing near the bar and watching him. Gunter's lips twitched, as though he were thinking about a secret joke before he turned and ran toward the road, swinging his covered lunch pail in one hand and his strapped books and slate in the other. Mike hurried to the barn to join Reuben, who began to clean the stalls. Mike quickly picked up a broom and got busy. Reuben was silent as he worked. Occasionally Mike glanced down from the corner of his eye, but he couldn't read the man's face. Was he angry at Mike too? Surely he wouldn't believe that Mike had tried to steal Mr. Friedrich's watch. Reuben was his friend. By the time they had finished work in the barn, Mike was so miserable with worry, he faced Reuben and said, "I didn't take that watch. Do you believe me?" "Of course I believe you," Reuben said. "It wasn't hard to figure out what happened. Gunter had the watch in your room. You discovered the fact. You slipped it into Gunter's pocket because there was nothing else you could do with it." "That's right," Mike said. "That's exactly what happened." He sat down in an overturned bucket and rested his chin on his hand. "Mr. Friedrich will probably figure out the last part, but he won't believe that Gunter put the watch in my room. He'll just think I heard him coming and got rid of it the only way a pickpocket would, once his back was to the wall." Reuben put a hand on Mike's shoulders. "As I told you before, Mike, you have to be careful of Gunter. Be friendly toward the boy. I've seen you bristle around him like an angry rooster." "He does his best to make me angry," Mike said. "It's no excuse," Reuben said. "Whether or not you give in to anger is your own choice." That's very like what Ma would be telling me." Mike stood and tried to smile, but the picture that came into his mind of Ma with her arms wide, ready to enfold him, was so vivid that tears blurred his sight. "I miss Ma," he whispered. "I miss my family." "Write to them," Reuben said. "It'll make you feel better. When you get answers to your letters, your outlook will brighten considerably." "I've wanted to," Mike said, "but I have nothing to write with." "Just ask Mr. Friedrich for some paper, and use a quill, pen, and ink," Reuben said. "It costs too little for him to begrudge them to you. He'll give them to you." "Fine, I'll ask him tonight." Mike pulled up his shoulders. "What's the next job?" "If you've got muscles for it, you could help me carry the buckets to feed the hogs." Mike didn't relish the job. Each time he'd done it, his arms had ached from the strain, but he said, "Sure, I'm ready. Those hogs will have their bellies." He was interrupted by Mrs. Friedrich calling, "Michael! Michael, where are you?" Mike ran from the barn toward the back porch stoop where Mrs. Friedrich was standing, her shawl wrapped tightly around her. "Ah," she said with satisfaction, "I knew you wouldn't be far from the house yet. I need you to do something for me." "Whatever you want, Mrs. Friedrich," Mike said. She handed him a tightly woven reed basket. "Michael," she said, "will you please fill this with cockleburrs? You'll find them in the wild grasses along the road." Mike thought about the prickly burrs that occasionally clung to the cuffs of his pants. "What would anyone want with cockleburrs?" he blurted out. "I'm going to boil them, make some alum," she said. "Well, then I suppose I'll be eating cockleburrs and enjoying them," Mike said, "since anything you cook is the best eating there is in the whole state of Missouri." Mrs. Friedrich laughed heartily. "Oh, Michael, you're so funny. I'm not going to cook them to eat. I'm going to make a green-yellow dye from them and dye some cloth for a new dress I'll make." She went back to the house, still laughing, and Mike ran down the driveway to the road. He plucked at the prickly burrs that hid among the grasses, now and again an extra harvest from the burrs that clung to the leg of his trousers and fingers of his gloves. The basket was large, and Mike found himself far down the road before it was even half full. As he stopped to stretch his arms and arch his tired back, he realized they had traveled quite a distance. The Friedrich farm buildings were no longer in sight, and far down the hill in the opposite direction he could see another white house, smoke rising from the chimney. He wondered who lived there. Mike bent once more to the task, eager to finish, but straightened when he heard a dull pounding of a horse's hoofs on the road. He watched a rider come from down the hill, closer, and saw that it was Corey Blair. Corey reined in his speckled gray horse near where Mike was standing. "You're the new boy at the Friedrich place." Mike nodded. "I'm Mike Kelly." "I'm Corey Blair. We heard some tales about you, Mike." Mike's backbone stiffened and he pulled back his shoulders, but Corey chuckled and said, "I'd like to see you tangle with that outlaw on the train." Corey swung from his horse, holding the reins loose, and he said, "I don't hold a man's past again, Mike. In fact, I figure you and me could become friends." "Thanks," Mike said. "I like that. The more friends I have, the better." "You was there when Mr. Friedrich throwed me out of his house," Corey said. "He ain't got no right to do that." "He gets angry a lot," Mike said. "I think he was angry because you were going to fight on the side of slavery." "Man's got a right to his own opinions," Corey said. Mike was puzzled. Corey seemed open and friendly. How could someone like that believe in slavery? "Do you really think that people should be slaves?" Mike asked him. In turn, Corey looked as though he couldn't understand Mike. "There's nothing to think about," he said. "Facts are, Missouri's a slave state. Nobody's got a right to change that except in our own lawmakers. Most of all, we don't need some Yankees coming in to tell us what to do." He shoved his hat back on his roughly cut, sun-bleached hair and proudly added, "My grandpap settled in Missouri. The Missouri people decide for themselves what they want." "Then why shouldn't Kansas people decide what they want?" Mike asked. "You know any of them Kansas people?" Corey asked. Then Mike shook his head. Corey said, "I didn't think so. A bunch of them are every bit as crazy as that old John Brown who got himself hung last year. You know about John Brown?" "No." "Well, Brown, along with his sons and some other folks, in the middle of the night come and drug some good old Missouri farm folk out of their beds and murdered them. Stole their belongings and said they were doing it to stop slavery. This feller Brown went on causing a heap of trouble, all the wet name of freeing some slaves who, if they knew what was best for 'em, probably didn't even want to be freed. Well, Anyhow, after Brown's raiders caused a lot more trouble, even taking over a U.S. government arsenal, a lot of the folks got killed. Old Brown was tried and hung, and everybody would have been better off if he never started nothing in the first place. Then why'd you go to the border to fight? Mike asked. 'Cause I got to, Corey said. Weren't you paying attention? This discussion was getting nowhere, Mike thought, so he deliberately changed the subject. Marta's been in a bad mood ever since Mr. Friedrich told you to leave the house. Corey looked pleased. She missed me? I guess. Corey took a step closer to Mike and bent forward, lowering his voice. You and me could help each other out, Mike. How? Mike was worried. Well, for one thing, since I can't go near the Friedrich's place with old man Friedrich there, I can't tell Marta I'm back home again. Oh, Mike said. Is that what you want? Sure, I'd be glad to tell her. Yesterday she was wondering where you were. Corey, a broad smile on his face, stuck a hand in his coat pocket and took out a folded square paper. I want a little more than that. I want you to take her this note from me. Mike hesitated, but Corey urged, just slip it to her when no one else is around. You ain't got to get into any trouble. He reached into his pocket again and came up with a half-dozen pennies. I'll give you this for taking the trouble. It's no secret Friedrich's stingy with his money, so I doubt he'll be handing out treats when you're in town. This is enough to get you a good-sized paper twist of candy drops. It didn't take Mike long to decide. How could he get in trouble just slipping Marta a small piece of paper? And the pennies were tempting. All right, he said, I'll do it. If there's an answer, Corey said, just find your way back here. Either me or my brothers will spy you from our place. He smiled. There'll be more pennies for you each time you do me this favor. Thanks, Mike said and grinned at Corey, glad to oblige. Mike pocketed the note and tied the pennies into the corner of his handkerchief, and they worked at a feverish pace to fill the basket. Eventually it was full, and he ran back to the house, out of breath as he thumped the basket on the kitchen table. Very good, Miss Friedrich said. That was fast work. She reached into a deep ceramic crock and pulled out a fat biscuit, split it, buttered it, and tucked a thick slab of cold meat into it. There's a little treat for you. Sit over there by the table, by the window. Eat it before you go back to work. By the time Mike sat down, she had a large glass of milk in front of him, too. Mike wolfed down the biscuit and milk. Working outdoors made him awful hungry. He carried the empty glass to Marta, who was busy scraping carrots at the other table. Here, give that to me, she said impatiently. She grabbed the glass but stopped and blinked with surprise as the note was thrust into her other hand. Mike put his finger to his lips, and Marta smiled, her cheeks suddenly turning bright pink, and shoved the note into the pocket of her apron. Reuben's clearing the last corn stalks from the field, Marta told Mike. It'd be a good idea for you to lend him a hand. Mike worked beside Reuben with a fierce energy, occasionally whistled or hummed a lively tune. He had coins in his pocket, a promise of more to come, and Marta would be back to her own good nature again. The day had turned out much better than he had thought. By dinner time his stomach rumbled with hunger, and he was glad to hear the bell clanging loudly. He wondered how he had once survived on the meager meals of potatoes and cabbage. Reuben put down his hoe and smiled at Mike. Glad to see your spirits improve so quickly. That they have, Mike said. They briskly strode toward the house, and both dogs ran to meet him. While he was out on the roadside, Corey Blair came by. Ah, he's back, is he? Reuben said. On ye brave who rush to glory or the grave. Corey's brave enough, I guess, Mike answered, but in my opinion, there's little glory to be had in what he's doing. It's my belief no one should be a slave. Good for you, Reuben said, and looked pleased. I'll understand why people think slavery's right. The answer is that they don't think. If they examine the issue, they might have to act on it. It's easier for them not to think at all. Mike reached down to scruff Wolf behind the ears. At least that's how Corey's back. We can count on a great improvement in Marta's disposition. Reuben laughed, and Mike continued. He gave me a note to slip to her. Reuben's laugh broke off. You're in no position to take extra chances, Mike. Let Corey work out another way to communicate with Marta if he must. Mike shrugged. No one saw me give it to her. There's nothing to fear. They reached the back stoop, so Reuben didn't answer. Instead, they splashed their faces and forearms in the basin of water and rubbed the soap until their skin was red and dried the linen towel that hung on a nail. Mike left Reuben in the kitchen and hurried into the dining room, where he managed to slide into his chair just as Mr. and Mrs. Friedrich were sitting down. As soon as the blessing was over, Mike asked, Mr. Friedrich, could I please have some paper and the use of your pen and ink bottle so I could write to my mother, my brothers and sisters? Mr. Friedrich paused in his job of scooping mashed and buttered yellow squash onto the plate in his left hand. He seemed to give Mike's question a long and serious thought. Mrs. Friedrich twisted her fingers together, nervously waiting for his answer, and Mara shifted from one foot to the other with impatience. Finally, Mr. Friedrich said, Mind you, I approve of your industrious spirit. I have no reason to deny you writing paper, but Mike held his breath. He had no idea Mr. Friedrich would do anything but agree. There is a problem, Michael. The postage you have for those letters would cost money, and so far the work you've done has not been enough to even begin to make up the generous room and board we've given you. And now you're asking me to spend hard-earned money on postage for your letters? Mike slumped back in his chair, so disappointed he felt ill. I've never sent a letter to anyone. I didn't think of the cost. 3 cents a letter is little to spend, Marta muttered. Mr. Friedrich threw her a quick, angry look before turning back to Mike. But Mike perked up at Marta's words. If it's just 3 cents, I could pay some of the postage. He fumbled with a handkerchief and tugged from his pocket and pulled out the coins Corey had given him. Here, this will be enough for 2 letters. Mr. Friedrich stared at the coins, and then he raised his head and thundered at Mike. Where did you get that money?